Whipple Family Misadventures Book 11 Between the Light and the Darkness Chapter 6. If Shadow had been able to speak, he would have told this strange person that he was alone, that Eclipse wasn't here. But his words disappeared in the horror and shock of what was happening, at being held by this massive, strange floating creature above him. And it did not look happy or pleased to see him. Less than a second later, the Darkling appeared next to them in a bright flash of light. For the first time since Shadow had met him, Eclipse didn't seem to be his usual confident and magnetic self. His tail was twisted around one of his ankles, instead of twitching behind him, not standing as straight up as he normally would.
I brought him here. I wondered if it was possible that 6,861,904 didn't die, as you originally thought, and decided to attempt another search. He survived, as you can see, so thought it would be best for him to be here.
The alien transferred his sharp gaze from Shadow over to Eclipse.
I looked for him a long time ago. His life signs were nowhere to be found.
His voice had a strange, echoing quality to it. The Darkling shrugged, but didn't make eye contact.
I searched again and I found him easily.
Without telling me?
I was going to. I thought it would be better if...
Where did you find him?
Eclipse glanced toward Shadow.
On that planet full of humans. I think he had been there for a while.
And you told him everything about the Black Arms?
Not quite. Shadow, meet Black Doom, the leader of the Black Arms, and our father.
Unable to say anything, Shadow could only stare back at the massive alien in front of him in horror. He wasn't sure what to expect for his biological father, but it wasn't a floating torso that had horns coming out of either side of his head, covered in with old jeweled robes and 3 eyes. Sneaking a look out of the corner of his eye toward Eclipse, the dark hedgehog had no idea how the 3 of them could be related to each other and for some strange reason, look so vastly different. There was almost no resemblance between the 3 of them.
Shadow. Is that what you're going by now? I do have to admit that it's better than that list of numbers Gerald first decided on. Why are you still so small? I was told you would grow. It's been a very long time. Why are you not growing?
Closing his eyes, Shadow attempted to use chaos control to get away. He didn't care where he went, as long as he was no longer within striking distance of this horrible person. He felt the build of energy under his skin like usual, but to his utter shock and surprise, nothing happened. He remained trapped within Doom's grasp. Gasping, he tried again only for it to continue to fail. When he snapped his eyes open again, he saw Black Doom watching him as if he was deeply bored and waiting for it to be over.
Eclipse, explain to your brother why his attempts to use his chaos abilities are failing.
The Darkling awkwardly cleared his throat.
His abilities greatly surpass yours and my own. You won't be able to use them right now.
Doom leaned closer to Shadow, close enough that Shadow could smell his rancid breath, surrounding him like a curtain.
This is my domain, and I control everything here, including who uses the chaos energy around us if I desire. But why would you want to leave? It's been so long, little hedgehog. I want to hear how you've survived. I completed a vast search for you and thought you were dead.
When Shadow didn't say anything, Doom scowled.
If you won't speak to me, I can just as easily take the answers out of your mind.
He's able to talk. I've been talking with him for days.
Eclipse started to say but was quickly silenced. Those 3 terrible red eyes focused on him again.
As long as you're here and I don't have to deal with that dithering idiot of a scientist anymore. Might as well see where he was with the project. There was much left unfinished.
When Eclipse had made a mental connection with him, it had felt like his mind had been brushed up against. A strange and slightly uncomfortable feeling to have someone else in his thoughts, but hadn't been painful. This was extremely uncomfortable, like Doom had taken a battering ram to get through his skull. Automatically, Shadow arched his back, gasping for air as he felt Doom invade every corner of conscious thoughts.
Suspended animation. How interesting. Explains why you haven't aged or grown when you clearly should have. But that cannot be right.
Black Doom started to float away from where he had been hovering, Shadow still caught in his claws, as Eclipse trailed behind them. It took a few seconds, but Shadow quickly realized where they were going. Heading down the corridor that the Darkling had warned him about. Doom's domain. A large door opened, revealing a large chamber inside. It had a dark, damp smell to it. The room was lined with massive shelves stuffed full of oddities that Shadow couldn't even begin to identify. A back wall full of what looked like computer monitors flickered off, and a stone table rose up from the floor. Finally, Doom released Shadow, setting him on it none too gently. The second he was free, Shadow attempted to run, to leap off the table so he could get as far away from this place as he could, but was dragged back by his tail and pinned down by the weight of Doom's claw.
Hold still.
Unable to say anything, Shadow remembered the sign language that Caitlin had taught him and began to sign help over and over. Even though he was fairly sure neither of them knew what the motion meant, he still did it. Spying Eclipse standing off to the side in the corner of the room, Shadow locked eyes with him desperately. Ducking his head, Eclipse only looked away, and a moment later his voice whispered inside Shadow's head.
It's okay, just be still, and it will be over soon.
A low, deep growl reverberated through his mind, and the Darkling instantly withdrew his connection. When Doom lifted his hand for a second time, Shadow made another attempt to escape, only to find that he couldn't move. Frantic thoughts began to run wild in his mind as he tried to move, tried to do anything, but he couldn't, wasn't even able to tremble.
If you would hold still, the nerve gas wouldn't be necessary.
Doom ran one clawed finger around his ears and down toward his muzzle, not hard enough to drag blood, but enough that he felt how sharp those claws were.
7 out of the 15 are there, and number 6 is the only one that's active. But that's not. Why has his mind been tampered with recently?
Shadow wasn't sure if this question was directed at him or not. Not that he was able to answer at the moment. Horribly confused, he wondered what Doom meant by saying that his mind has been tampered with, not to mention recently.
I had to.
Eclipse protested sulkily from his corner.
He thought a human on that pathetic planet cared about him. He would have stayed there if I hadn't done anything.
Breathing as shallowly as he could, Shadow tried to turn his head to look at the Darkling, barely believing what he had been hearing. The complete terror in knowing that the Darkling, who had presented himself as someone who could be trusted, had been digging around and tampering with something? There was another growl about his head.
And when you did, you activated an implanted memory. A random one, completely out of order. I spent too much time preparing for this moment for you to ruin it with your incompetence. Keep your claws out of his mind. And what human was this? The creator. I gave him specific instructions not to get attached. That he would revert back to me as per our deal.
Eclipse sighed.
I don't think so. It was someone he called Dad.
Suddenly, the claw was under his chin, tilting his head up for him, forcing eye contact.
Who is this human?
A moment later, Doom scoffed as he pulled the needed information out of his mind.
Not the professor. What kind of name is Wade Whipple?
Wade couldn't sleep. Tossing and turning, his mind wouldn't even consider calming down enough for him to relax, no matter how tired he was. It was sometime in the middle of the night, but he didn't want to look at the time, because then he would know how few hours there was before his alarm went off and he had to get up for work. Even though it had been less than 48 hours since Shadow had slipped out his bedroom window and disappeared, it felt like it had been much longer. Wade had spent the last 2 days in a determined but exhaustion-smeared haze, frantically looking everywhere for the slightest of idea of where Shadow could have gone off to. Everyone he asked in town swore up and down that they hadn't seen him. He and Silver had combed through the woods for hours, calling and calling, but nothing came up. The black and red hedgehog had disappeared without a trace. And that felt like the worst punch to the gut. There was something to be said about his ability to be a parent when one of his kids ran away. Especially so soon, when it had only been a few months, and he didn't even know why. Obviously, something had been upsetting him as he had been acting out so much, but Wade honestly didn't know what was going on behind it. And that thought was killing him. Wade had spent hours going over every moment of those last interactions with Shadow before he disappeared, analyzing each haunting detail with a new layer of guilt, wondering what he had done wrong. What he had missed that made the child he proclaimed to love deeply instead want to get as far away from him as possible. Earlier in the evening, Wade had put one of the blankets that had been on Shadow's bed outside, right near the back door, knowing how much he loved it, enjoyed being encased in the comfortable plush fabric. Wrapped tightly inside it, Wade had put in a key to the house, just in case Shadow didn't have the one he had been given with him. If he came back and decided he wanted that blanket, when he unrolled it, the key would fall out. Just a simple message that he was still wanted and could come back anytime he desired. Not having Shadow there made the house feel too big, too empty, too quiet. It wasn't right, it was supposed to be the three of them. While Wade was glad that at least Silver was still with him, he still desperately wanted Shadow back, no matter what. Wade's bedroom door cracked open and there was a whisper.
"Dad?"
Sitting up, Wade squinted into the darkness. It was horrible, but he desperately hoped for a moment that it was Shadow returning. Felt a stab of utter disappointment when he realized it was only Silver, and then felt guilty for thinking something so awful.
"What's wrong, buddy?"
The gray hedgehog padded across the room and climbed up on the bed next to him, clutching his plush in his arms.
"I can't sleep. I miss Shadow."
Sighing, Wade hugged him to his chest, relishing the hedgehog's soft warm weight against him as he leaned back against the pillow.
I miss him too.
Silver curled into a partial ball, resting his head on Wade's ribs.
"Did he run away because of me?"
No, he absolutely did not. This wasn't your fault, not even a little bit.
Wade said immediately. If he accomplished nothing else, he will make sure that Silver does not blame himself. If anything, it was his fault for not realizing something was wrong, and for constantly banishing Shadow to be alone in the bedroom when instead he needed support and help with whatever was plaguing him.
Then, why did he leave?
Tears started to build in Wade's eyes, as he had been asking himself the same things for the past 2 days. Had he personally done anything wrong? Had he missed something? Was there something he should or shouldn't have done that would have made Shadow stay?
I don't know.
Wade barely managed to choke out as the first tear rolled down his face. Letting go of his plush, Silver reached up with both arms and wrapped them around his neck, and Wade hugged him even tighter. Neither said anything as shared grief overtook the room. By the time the alarm went off, Silver had fallen back asleep, still clinging to him. Wade might have dozed off, but he honestly wasn't sure, lost in torments of his own thoughts. He briefly thought about carrying Silver back to his own bed and then decided against it, instead just tucking the gray hedgehog and his plush gently under the blanket and getting up and left the bedroom. He didn't have the slightest idea of how he was supposed to go to work and carry on like normal while his son was missing. But he would have to, because the rest of the world didn't stop, even though it felt like his own world had come screeching to a halt. It was horrible, and even worse knowing that if Shadow didn't want to be found, he probably could stay hidden and easily evade detection from them for a very long time if that was what he wanted. And while Wade would never stop trying to find out what happened to him, he couldn't stop going to work. He still had a son to feed and bills to pay. Slowly, moving heavily like a much older man, Wade headed out to the kitchen to start on a pot of coffee and to make his own breakfast. But he never got there. One moment he was walking through the living room, and then there was a bright flash of light around him. Before he could even think about dodging it, it swallowed it up. The next moment, he was inside a dark chamber in an unfamiliar room, and there was a massive entity hovering above him.